Okay, the first thing you're going to notice is that this video isn't matching my lips and what I'm saying. It turns out my streaming software somehow went crazy while I was trying to record this. So uh, I didn't get any sound from the episode or myself. Um, so that kind of tanks its reaction, but I still wanted to add some commentary because this was a really good episode. I was very worried about it at first because I wasn't sure how a British company was going to do making such an integral part of American history, especially such a touchy part of American history and important to us. And I also wasn't sure how much the average British viewer knows about the civil rights movement. So um, I guess I didn't have high expectations for this episode, but this part right here is where it started to get real for me. You start to see the doctor doesn't really know what to do. Uh, the companions all step in. They're becoming more of a team. Graham especially so good in this episode. Very protective, but very in a good way, not in an overprotective way, but just in a really good way. The scene hit me hard. I think it was a little weird that the characters weren't more prepared for it. Maybe that's just because I live in America and we learned all about this. So I guess if I was in 1955, that'd be the first thing I would think of. I do like the new way the TARDIS looks. The new color is great. I mentioned it last episode, but it bears repeating. I like the costume design on the enemy here. The realization here that what's about to happen is kind of some timey-wimey stuff. Maybe something is going to happen to Rosa Parks is good. And I also think the scene also shows even more. Like last season, we had the Doctor step in with Bill in the Victorian age at the end of an episode. It was a really good moment as far as race goes. But in this situation where it's way more pervasive than just a couple of bad people, the Doctor is really out of her element. She doesn't really know what to do. She doesn't know how to combat it, except for just to not be here, basically. And you can see the struggle. They did a good job of showing how frustrated Ryan was with it, and Yaz for that matter. This part bothered me because I wasn't sure how did the policeman know they were in this hotel room. They didn't check in. They snuck in through the window. Maybe they did check in and they just let Yaz and Ryan in through the window. I can't remember. But it was kind of a weird scene, I guess. I wouldn't be used to a policeman barging into my hotel room, even if they asked nicely at this point in our country's history. So I don't know if that was common back then or this is just some creative license. And I like how the Doctor doesn't really lie. She just phrases it in a way that is more decent than the people at the time. No one's here who shouldn't be here, basically, is what she says. And I like that. This confrontation here is classic Doctor because she's already figured out he's got the neural implant. She's already figured out he can't actually kill anybody or hurt anybody. So, of course, she takes away his time travel ability. Why not? That's trap the villain, make them unable to act. Classic. And she stands up for herself really well. Obviously, we all know the Doctor is physically powerful, so a fist fight actually is in the Doctor's favor if it were to come to that. Like maybe if she'd been wrong about the neural implant, as long as she didn't have his disintegrator was done for, which it already was. Showing off, I think, the trademark of this Doctor, which is like the reveal that she already knew what was going on and has already solved it before you even knew what the problem was. Already been solved. I like that idea. I like how they've used it a few times now. Boom, crush that vortex manipulator. I didn't put it in the video, but her throwing the gear at him so he disintegrated it was also excellent. Um, very smooth move. A lot of confidence in her own skills with that. This guy may be a little overconfident too, because I mean, I'm pretty sure that the Montgomery bus boycott was planned. So like, if it hadn't happened that day, it would happen some other day. So them lining it up, maybe history would be changed. I guess they're thinking about the butterfly effect a lot in this episode. So I think that's what they were going for. Like, yeah, maybe it would have happened, but it would have been different. Maybe it wouldn't have had the impact that it had otherwise, or would have changed other events. I think the guy playing the villain did a good job at playing a person who's a murderer who can't murder. I think it's an interesting idea, but also he had some panache, and he was smart. I mean, he did try to play all the angles that he possibly could. This scene worried me at first too. It was pretty gutsy for a British show to put Martin Luther King Jr. into this show, um, but they did it well. They didn't overuse him. The conversation wasn't too long and just hit the right notes. Doing the whole history double take, like, oh yeah, they don't know they're famous. They're just people, just like anybody else. And this is where this episode got really, really real and really, really intense. Graham is starting to become my favorite companion, and I was not prepared for him to become my favorite before the season started. Um, he's so good. He's so decent. He's he doesn't even want to be the reason. Look at his face. Look at his face the next time it shows it. He doesn't want to be the reason why this happens, even if it's a necessary part of history, and it's killing him. Every instant of this scene, and this scene was so real and so uh, it got me a lot. That's part of the reason why I'm so disappointed I lost this reaction, because I probably haven't been hit so hard and so fast um, with emotion in Doctor Who before this. Maybe Matt Smith's regeneration did it, but look at Graham's face. He's like, he's stunned. Look how stunned he is. And the music was perfect. Everything was good. There, I'm getting excited about the time rotor because I was afraid it wouldn't go up and down. I thought it might be a light inside that would go up and down, but the whole thing actually moving up and down was good. That was a touch of the TARDIS that I wanted to make sure was still there, and I'm just glad it is. But overall, it was a really good episode. I think people who may have thought Yaz wasn't getting enough time in the first two episodes were probably pleasantly surprised. She had a lot of good lines and a lot of good timing during this episode. We showed she's definitely willing to step in the way of danger. Um, Basically, this episode was just a really intense, especially at the end. And I'm not gonna lie, as soon as I heard that the episode title a few weeks ago, I was definitely apprehensive, but they passed it with flying colors. I mean, it's win after win with this season of Doctor Who, and I can't wait to see what the rest of the season holds, and what really, I mean, what they can do, because the new cast is fantastic. I like the crowded TARDIS, even though it seemed like it was going to be hard for them to give all the companions time. We saw in this episode they can balance it really well. They can really make it work, and they can tackle some subjects which are really tough, and even which British viewers may not be familiar with. They alluded to it a little bit, how Ryan didn't really actually understand the bus boycott at first, but it makes me think that maybe some British people are more informed about it than others. I was just unsure going in. I didn't know what level of information British people had about it. But that's it. Thanks for listening. Sorry I didn't actually have the reaction for y'all, but these things happen. I will be double sure to check my sound levels next time, and I'll see you then.